Hello, BookTube. We're going to forge ahead with this library tour that I'm doing. We're doing biography, and we are slowly but surely reaching the end of my biography section, and it's making me wish my biography section were much bigger. It's really making me wish. I mean, when we go on, when we do other bookcases, we're going to be dealing with other kinds of stuff. There's a whole bookcase of science fiction and fantasy. There's shelf after shelf of fiction, and this is making me wish that I could snap my fingers and replace all of those books with the biographies that I don't have. That's a gradual process, so we'll get to it. I'm going to be looking down a bit because I'm still standing up. I still haven't figured out a way to arrange a chair so that this will work. So I'm going to have to do it for the lower shelves here, but I've got one that's still within reach. And I think this might be the shelf that I did just recently. I know I picked one of these shelves just at random recently. Not recently, I mean hundreds of videos ago, but still, some of you will remember it as not being part of any biography book tour. We're just going to do it again for all of you who are new. And we're going to start off with a very haphazard and half-hearted attempt at organization. There are a small group of relatively classical books that I mean the whole thing needs to be redone, but this is Shackleton Bailey's profile of Horace. Can't do a real life of Horace, so we don't know enough about him to do what the 20th century would consider a biography, but Shackleton Bailey is a great translator of Horace and a great classicist, and this is it's a skinny book, but boy oh boy is it good. Probably my favorite piece of writing on Horace, aside from Horace's own writing on himself. So that, see, now I don't want to knock the camera over here. We'll put... Okay, this is Averell Cameron. This is a fantastic book, just fantastic. This is Procopius and the 6th Century. And it's his book studying not only Procopius's histories, not just the secret history, but the histories that Procopius wrote for money and for public acclaim, but also the whole world that they describe using other sources than Procopius. Just fantastic. If you're interested in that sort of thing, then it's just fantastic. And of course, I am interested in that sort of thing because the historical novel, I write historical novels for fun. I don't bother submitting them to publishers anymore. I just do it for fun, and I've done it for a long time. And the historical novel that has stuck with me the most, the one that those of you who are writers out there will know, there's always one book that just won't let you go. You write the end, but it's not over. You keep going back to it. And the one book that I have written that is like that is my novel, Belisarius Out in the Dark, Running. And it has therefore occasioned a lifetime of studying and researching Belisarius and his age. So this was invaluable, absolutely invaluable. Okay, this next one is Timothy Barnes. This is Constantine and Eusebius. Another text-oriented study of the classical world. In this case, the emperor who made Christianity the official religion of the empire, and a fantastic historian. Eusebius is really entertaining to read. Not as entertaining as Procopius's secret history, but then almost nothing is. But really good. The baby bean is acting up on the floor. If I remember, I'll grab her and show her to you on camera. People have been saying, it's great to see her on the back of the couch, but we want to see her face. And when she was in the room, she would often be right at your feet, so you would show her to us. I will do that because her face is important. Okay, this next one is fantastic. This is by Arthur Kahn, and it is The Education of Julius Caesar. Probably, for my money, the best Julius Caesar biography that's ever been written. Probably that is the case. Just fantastic. Totally out of print. Even there was a print-on-demand version of this about 30 years ago. Even that's out of print. I don't think this is ever coming back. But if you find it, and you're interested in a volume on Julius Caesar, boy oh boy, you can't go wrong with this one. I just loved it. Just loved it. Okay, all right. This is J. Paulson's Life of Julius Caesar as well. Paulson was an old school classicist, and this is his version. It's very instructive to read these two things in light of each other. And also, what was, some of you remember, I'm drawing a blank, what was the big and really successful Julius Caesar biography from about 25 years ago? Who was that? Was that Adrian Goldsworthy? You'll know the one I'm talking about. It has a really good cover. It has a very close-up of a statue of Julius Caesar on the cover. I think that was Goldsworthy, I want to say, or maybe Tom Holland. Well, one way or another. That was a very much a popular biography of Julius Caesar. And this is sort of the middle ground of that. It's very politically knowing. It's very, very detailed. And then this is a scholarly classicist biography of Julius Caesar. And I like the spectrum there. So, but there are 80 million more Julius Caesar biographies, and I ought to have a couple more, and I don't. I have these, and I have the landmark Julius Caesar, which is a great book on its own. And I don't think I have anything else. Well, okay. I have a life of the guy who killed Julius Caesar. This is Katherine Tempest's biography of Brutus. Very, very nice classical themed cover with the gold lettering and all. This came out a few years ago. What, 2017 this came out, and I thought, okay, well, we don't know enough about Brutus to fill a whole book. You're just going to have to infer a lot of stuff, and that's fine, provided you're entertaining doing it. But I really liked this. Thought it was really, really good. Even though that is what it does, it's still really good. With a thing like that, you're going to go into programmatic regurgitations of, the life in the Republican era, life at the end of the Republican era, the Brutus clan, and all that sort of stuff. And it all depends on how well you do it, and this author does it really well. Okay. All right, this is from last year. Magnificent thing, just magnificent. This is David Blight's biography of Frederick Douglass. Great big thing, stern end papers and the deckled edges. You can see it's full of reviews. Every time I found a review of this thing, I stuffed it in here because I know I'm never going to get rid of it. What a book. I mean, Frederick Douglass is a tough act to follow because he wrote about himself and with unbelievable eloquence. But this is one of my favorite biographies of its year. And those of you who are maybe vacationally inclined, David Blight will be a guest at the Martha's Vineyard Book Festival coming up. So, if you're planning on summering at the Vineyard, I don't know any of you who are, but if you are planning on summering at the Vineyard, I want to factor that in. Okay, all right. This next one is a great big New York Review of Books classic. Really well made. One of my long-standing complaints about their paperback line is that they don't tend to be well made. They tend to be sort of cheap glue and sort of cheap paper on the covers, so the covers start to curl up. I've noticed that a lot of the examples that I've had of them in the last, say, 6 years have not been like that. So it's probably time to retire that complaint. It looks like they've upped their game production-wise. And this thing is bigger than their usual books. This is almost the size of a full-size trade paperback, and this is Richard Holmes' great book on Percy Shelley, The Pursuit, that just shows his grave. And it is the artsy-fartsy subtitle notwithstanding, it's just a great Shelley biography, the best one. Just fantastic. Although it probably should be with writers, right? He ought to be with writers. Well, anyway. Oh, great. Okay. This next one is a 2-volume set. Boy, I really need to reinforce these. Wow. Okay, these are not reinforced, but I go back to them all the time. This is Lady Elizabeth Longford, who we've already seen in this biography tour. She did a 1-volume, a big fat 1-volume biography of Queen Victoria. That is one of the Victoria biographies that I have decided to keep, despite the fact that there have been millions of them. And this is another great work of hers. This is a 2-volume biography of the Duke of Wellington, The Years of the Sword and the Pillar of State. So, and as usual, we saw on this channel years ago, there is a more recent 2-volume biography of the Duke of Wellington, and with a 2-volume biography of the Duke of Wellington, because of his life, because of what his life was like, it invites a 2-volume treatment, because first he was a warrior and defeated Napoleon, and then he became prime minister. So he had first a military half of his life and then a political half of his life. So this sort of thing is warranted. But the reason that I love Longford's book, I did not keep the other 2-volume Wellington set. I've had both of them, and they're very pretty things and very well done. But I didn't keep them because they seemed more dutiful to me than well written. And Longford, I really like her prose. I really do. I don't like her prose quite as much as I like the prose of her daughter, Antonia Fraser, but I still like her prose quite a bit. And I knew that as soon as I had those original, the later Wellington 2-volume thing, And as soon as I had them together on the shelf and I put them next to these, my first thought was, well, okay, you thought that Wellington was a bit of a ponce, so you don't need 4 volumes on the Duke of Wellington, especially since in the other room I have the Penguin Classic of his military dispatches that has a great introduction, great notes. I technically don't need any lives of Wellington, but I looked at those things and I thought, okay, well, you don't need both of these 2-volume sets of this guy. And it wasn't a hard decision at all as to which one to keep, even though the newer one has later scholarship, later interpretations, has access to later biographies. It was no contest. There's nothing earth-shakingly new about Wellington, and therefore no reason to keep the later set when Elizabeth Longford's book has been pleasing me for 40 years. So I kept it instead. Every once in a while, I have a twinge and wish that I could find those Wellington books. I wonder how strong my resolve is. I wonder if I saw those for $1 a piece at the Brattle, I wonder if I wouldn't get them. I should not get them, but I wonder if I would have the strength to resist. Okay, this is another review-packed new biography. This is Julian Jackson's biography of Charles de Gaulle. Again, stuffed with reviews, because that's what I do now. I don't keep a file of my book reviews, because I realized years ago that I never consulted the file. Instead, I just groused. I would just grouse at my desk or on the couch and say, boy, I wonder where that review is. But I never even bothered to unearth the filing cabinet or the box and go look for it. And then I realized, no, the place you're going to look for these things is going to be in the book. So, everybody reviewed this book. Everybody did. I once again wish that the American version weren't so drab. It's just a gray photograph. And I also wish that the American version had retained the UK title, A Certain Idea of France, instead of just calling it de Gaulle. But it got reviewed everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So I included all of those reviews in here, but I do more than that. With books in biography and also history, I do more than that. If I'm reading the TLS, or the London Review of Books, and there's a long article on a new book about the Battle of Bosworth Field, and I don't have the book they're reviewing, and I don't have any other book on the Battle of Bosworth Field at the moment, I will, if I like the review, I will still save it. I will just put it in, a Henry VII biography. I do stuff like that, where I save lots of reviews, not necessarily of the book specifically, and just fold them up and put them wherever I think I'm going to find them and need them. That system has worked really, really well, and it has allowed me to get rid of a lot of ridiculous storage. A lot of that stuff was just, I don't need it anymore. Now I know where to find these things. And if I get rid of these books, then I get rid of the reviews too, and provide the incredible serendipitous joy that you've all felt. I've certainly felt it at the Brattle Bookshop and everywhere else, where you find a book for sale at a used bookstore, and it is crammed with reviews that someone has very carefully put in there. Why should I deny that experience of somebody else? If I get rid of a book, it stands to reason I'm going to get rid of the reviews as well. Okay. All right, this is the UK version of Agatha Christie's autobiography. I found a UK version and reread it, and realized when I reread it how long it had been since I read the thing. It's a remarkable book. It's not an autobiography in any working sense of the word, but it's one of the most remarkable things that she ever wrote. Very much reminded me that when I read it this time around of A Backward Glance by Edith Wharton. Very much reminded me of those two things. They are meditations on self, which you might think is a good definition of an autobiography, but no, an autobiography is supposed to be your own version of your life story. It's not supposed to be anything as elusive and artsy-fartsy as a meditation on you, and that's what A Backward Glance is, and that's what this thing is as well. And it also percolated for a long time. This was the book that Christie had in that particular desk drawer that would constantly call to her, and on her desk itself, with the pen and the birds chirping just out the window, she had the book she was working on, An Affair at Styles or whatever, and she had the plot in her mind, and she had the characters in her mind, and she had what was going to happen and where she was, and also in the back of her mind, with An Affair at Styles or Curtain or a Murder in the Library or whatever, she also in the back of her mind, or maybe on a piece of paper on her desk, had her deadline. And sometimes not, I don't think with Agatha Christie, but a lot of writers like her who just churned out books constantly. A lot of writers that I've known like that had not only the deadline, but also the fee. Just on a piece of paper, just right there to remind them constantly of what they were doing and why. And although that produces a stack of books that can be read with enjoyment, you've seen on this channel that I am loving rereading all of the Simenon novels, the Maigret novels of Simenon. That is true for science fiction. That is true for mystery. That is true for a whole bunch of things. I'm not decrying the end product at all, but this was the book that she didn't write that way. This is the only one she didn't write that way. This was the book that was calling to her the whole time. And her, in addition to the fee, she would also view this as a reward. She would give herself 2 or 3 pages of working on this as a reward. Lots and lots of writers do that. In fact, the more prolific they are, the more they tend to do that. Georgette Heyer never stopped writing her potboiler romances, never. And loved them, loved doing it, loved hearing from fans and all that. But the whole time she was also working on a huge, ambitious historical novel. And I like that. It's a very different Agatha Christie that you meet in these pages than you will meet in her novels. Very different. This is Agatha Christie long brooding over the page. And the one thing that the Agatha Christie in the novels that we all love does not do is long brood over the page. So I'm very happy that I found it. Very glad that I got to reread it. Now, what is this now? Oh, okay. All right. This is by Gale Christensen. This is an old and very good, to my mind, still the best biography of Isaac Newton in the presence of the Creator. I really enjoyed this book, and when I got it forever, and I got it back when it came out. When did it came out? In the 80s? 1984. I got it and read it hoping that I would love it because it was a gift. It was a gift from Me Sainted Ma. It was part of the History Book Club. The History Book Club, I belonged to them for years and years and years. And they're just a normal type of in-the-mail book club where you get main selections and you get, alternate selections, and you pick a book or you turn down a book that month, and you have to fulfill a certain number of books in a certain amount of time in order to upkeep your membership and whatnot. And one day, out of the blue, Me Sainted Ma did not read. She was not a fan of reading. She always used to say, "I'm saving my eyes." And I would always joke with her, "Well, Ma, what are you saving them for? The organ donation bank?" And she would say, "What are you, wise? That's your mother you're talking to." And she, of course, thought that reading was for the devil, and that I was ruining my eyes and all that sort of stuff. And one day, out of the blue, she said, "Is there a book you want? I'll get it for you." So, of course, I went to the History Book Club and picked the book that I wanted the most, which was this one. I knew nothing about it. I was out of the reviewing game at the time. And I, of course, when I was waiting for it, I was hoping that I would like it. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It is a totally human portrait of an inhuman genius. It's totally human about Isaac Newton, but you can't lose the impression throughout this book, or any biography of him, that there was something just different about his brain. You can't escape that. That is not biographical romance. That is actually inescapably true. And I liked it. I loved it. And then years and years later, after Me Sainted Ma had shuffled off this mortal coil and gone to nag God for all of eternity, I came back to the book, and I was hesitant. I was fearful, because I thought, well, what if it isn't good? What if I've loved it all this time because I loved her? Won't that sting a little? And I read it anyway. Of course, you have to. And I loved it. I just loved it. So I wasn't in any danger of that. And I don't have any other Newton biographies. Occasionally, I will get one and read it, but that's the only one I need. That's the only one I want. Oh, fantastic. All right, this is Geoffrey Hodgson. This is A Gentleman from New York. This is a life of Daniel Patrick Moynihan. We've seen him already on this biography tour. On the top shelf of this bookcase, we saw a collection of his letters, which is so heavily annotated and introduced that it actually does work really well as a biography, just like that Willa Cather volume does. It works really well as a biography, even though it's a collection of letters. This is a straight-up biography, and it is lyrical. It's written out of love. Some of you will have heard, probably a lot of you, most of you probably won't have heard of Daniel Patrick Moynihan. Some of you who have might not be surprised to learn that he inspired a lot of love. He was just one of those people who did razor-sharp intellect, but he inspired a lot of love. And This book is written out of love, and it's often been the case with me that the biographies that I truly love, the ones that I tend to keep, tend to be written either out of love or out of hatred. The middle ground tends not to do it for me. They can be worthy, they can be, scholarly and sound as a tub, but I don't end up wanting to keep them. I don't feel like there's a personal connection. That's one of the things I love about biography, is that there's a personal connection. There's a reason that draws you to it. That's why I don't like... There are a couple of biographers working right now, no names, mind you, who come out with a new, 200-page biography of a new person every season. There's one guy who's working his way through, systematically working his way through every single person, even remotely connected with revolutionary America. And that means you're not connected to any of those people. And that just doesn't do it for me. Not in terms of a book like this. It doesn't. Not in comparison. No, not at all. Okay. All right. This is this is Colonel Young's book, The Medici, which I reinforced and now needs more reinforcing. That's rare. That almost never happens. I specifically reinforce these things so that they don't. Something must have nudged that really hard. But this is just a big fat generational family biography of the Medicis. And there have been later books. There's another one coming out, and I go to them and I'm interested in them for their scholarship. But I go back to this far more often. This is the one I keep because of how eloquent it is, how insightful it is, and also how literate it is. It's not anything you can expect anymore. At the beginning of the 20th century, I forget when this thing was written. It's probably in the early 20th century. This reprint volume might not tell me, but this is quite old. Okay, the copyright in this volume is 1933. The book itself might be even older than that by a bit. And back then, in the first third of the first quarter of the 20th century, when you encounter those writers, biographers, and historians, it's not just that they know their subject backwards and forwards. It's that they have read intimately the literature of their subject's time period. And it's a quite different feeling than a modern biographer of, for instance, the Medici family, or Lorenzo de' Medici himself, where, yeah, they've got the dutiful quotes from Machiavelli or whoever, but you can tell, when you're reading it, you can tell on the page that although they have found the quote, they do not know the work. They did not grow up in reading that work. They do not know it and love it in the way that these scholars do. I'm not phrasing it very well, but there's no mistaking it on the page, none whatsoever. And I prefer it. I prefer that older attitude, where these people are not just studying all the sources for the Medici, but also know all of their world, know it with a familiarity that comes from their own schooling, and that is now gone. That is now completely gone. You can go in America, I'm sure in the UK as well, you can go the entirety of your education all the way to the finishing of your undergraduate college degree without learning anything at all about the Italian Renaissance or the Medici family or the Borgias or anything like that. You can go the whole time without learning anything about that, even down to simple demotic facts, much less learning the literature. The whole time. You can do the whole thing without encountering it at all. And that wasn't true in Young's day, so it makes a difference in the finished product. What is this? Oh, okay, great. All right. Wow, I didn't know this was here. I was looking for this the other day. I've already put it on the shelf. This is brand new. This is Stephen Budiansky's biography of Oliver Wendell Holmes. I'm reviewing this for the Christian Science Monitor. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I strongly recommend it. It may very well be better than the two great biographies of Holmes that have already appeared, Justice for Beacon Hill and Yankee from Olympus. It may be better than both of those, which is amazing to claim on its own. I loved it. It's not very big, but it'll be in your bookstores now, I think. I believe this came out in May. Yeah, this came out in right at the beginning of June. So it'll be in your bookstores now. It'll be in your libraries if you're interested, and maybe you don't know enough about Oliver Wendell Holmes and you want to. Boy, oh boy, is Budiansky a lively biographer. Boy, oh boy, is he lively. This is a lively book. It matches its subject in that way. So we'll end this with a very contemporary note. This is a brand new book. Great, fantastic. And it serves to point out, underscore a point that I've made here before, which is that I do put new books on these shelves. This is not just for old stuff. You've seen that already. You've seen that even on this shelf with Gaulle and Frederick Douglass. I do put new books on these shelves, and then I just wait. I wait. I put them there when they really impress me, and then I wait to see if that's going to stay true, or maybe I'm going to want to weed them out or whatnot. I have a staging area as well where I put newer books of all genres that are so new that I don't even know how to think about them yet, much less where they're going to go in my collection. But some of them I put on the shelf right away. The Budiansky book, the Frederick Douglass book, absolutely right away you're reading it, and you know right away you're reading a great biography, something you're... And the same thing with the Jackson de Gaulle book. I might weed that out if I were ever to come across a UK version, but that's all. I wouldn't want to not have the book. But anyway, that's another incredibly tedious library tour. We'll wrap this up for now, and we will move on. Next time, the next two, we've got 2 shelves left in this bookcase, and therefore in biography as a whole. And the 2 bookcase shelves that are left are too far down for me to do them while standing up. So I'm going to have to come up with another way to do it. I'll figure that out tomorrow, and we'll see how the results are. But in the meantime, I'll wrap this up for now. But I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.